welcome to Oxley Fire. This isn't just a place in the Ozarks, it's where two people are discovering that a simple life can become a doorway into extraordinary awareness. Around these fires, in the woods, and through the things we build, the things we lose, and the things that surprise us. And especially through this relationship Diane and I are sharing. I'm becoming increasingly interested in one simple question. What happens when we stop trying to control life and simply begin listening to it? Earlier this year, I met a woman named Diane on a spiritual dating website. We began communicating, and eventually I decided to drive from my little home here in the Ozarks all the way to Arizona to meet her. I didn't know what was going to happen, and I wasn't trying to begin a new life. I was curious. And perhaps curiosity is one of the gentlest ways we can enter into the unknown. Diane and I spent 2 beautiful days together exploring Cottonwood and Sedona, Arizona. We walked a lot, we talked, we wandered through the red rocks, we wandered along Oak Creek, and something between us felt remarkably easy. There was no great declaration about the future, no promises, just 2 people discovering one another after so many years. And before I left Arizona on that trip and began to make the long drive back to Arkansas, we shared one tender little kiss, and that was all. I drove home, and neither one of us knew what was going to happen next. And for the next month or so, we continued talking almost daily, and gradually we became more comfortable with one another. Something was unfolding. Eventually, Diane invited me to return to Arizona and become part of the community where she was living. So I closed up my little house here in the Ozarks. I loaded a few things into my car and I headed west. Not knowing what to do or how to make a little money, I decided to start busking, playing music on the street of uptown Sedona.
It feels like this since it's been here. Here comes the sun. Here comes the sun. Nice and easy. It's alright.
I played my guitar there. I met new people. Diane and I and her dog Abby hiked through the extraordinary landscape together. We enjoyed food together. We even went to a concert to see the Herman's Hermits. And for a while I thought, maybe this is where life is taking me. But before too long, something rather ridiculous happened. As strange as it may seem, I couldn't find a place to consistently park my car. I mean, this sounds insignificant, but it really became a real problem. There simply wasn't a place for my car in this community where Diane lived. So I tried the overflow parking. Well, that wasn't allowed. It didn't work. I tried a couple of other possibilities. Those didn't work either. Eventually, I found myself driving down a gravel road and parking in front of an abandoned house. But I kept trying to solve this problem. Because that's what we do, isn't it? When reality isn't cooperating with our plans, we negotiate with reality. Maybe I can do this. Maybe I can park over there. Maybe there's another solution. Until one day, I had this wonderfully absurd realization. Sedona, Arizona is kicking me out. It didn't want me there. At least that's what it felt like. So instead of continuing to fight with the situation, Diane and I decided to take a 2-week drive and come back here to the Ozarks for about 2 weeks. Not permanently, but just to see what it feels like somewhere else. And I have to say, it was really surprising. After about 4 days, Diane woke up one morning and she looked around the little cottage in the woods and she said something I wasn't expecting. She said, "I can see myself here." And suddenly, another possibility appeared. And we began imagining a life together in my little cottage in the Ozarks. I had some savings and I could build another bedroom onto the cottage. And Diane could leave her job. She could retire. We could combine our resources and just simplify our lives. And it wasn't long after that I began building. I was cutting lumber. I was hanging walls, staining pine boards, installing windows, making shelves. I was creating a room where there hadn't been one before. Eventually, I had to fly back to Arizona and help Diane pack what remained of her life in Sedona and bring Abby back to the Ozarks as well. And this little cottage delightfully began to change. But we noticed that something else was changing. It was my idea of what home meant. We were planting flowers. We were going out to listen to music. We were bringing Abby down to the river to swim. We worked on the house. We cooked together. We sat on the porch. We laughed a lot. And almost imperceptibly, 2 separate lives began becoming a shared life. And recently, life reminded us of something very important. It was something neither of us particularly wanted to be reminded of, and that is the fact that everything can change. It was one ordinary day, Diane became unexpectedly ill. And within a remarkably short period of time, our comfortable little routine gave way to emergency rooms and hospitals, and uncertainty and surgery. And I really don't need to tell the details of that story because the details aren't really what this story is about. What interested me was what happened inside my own mind. You know, when someone we love suddenly becomes vulnerable, the mind discovers just how much it wants guarantees. It wants to know, is everything going to be okay? What's going to happen next? What else could go wrong? And what can I do to prevent this from ever happening again? You know, beneath all of those questions is just another question. It's a much older one. How do we make ourselves safe in a world where everything changes? Where everything is in a constant sense of flow and flux? A few days into this experience, while driving through the Ozarks, I decided to listen to one of the lessons from my series called Relational NRI. I listened to lesson 9, which says, everything is temporary, including this moment. That's when something rather unexpected happened. I realized I wasn't listening to something I had created for other people anymore. I was listening to something that I needed. And there was one particular thought that reached me. Nothing needs to be changed in this moment because this moment is complete. I realized that what I needed wasn't another explanation. I didn't need another theory. It wasn't another way of predicting what might happen tomorrow. What I needed was medicine for my mind. Now, I've been thinking about that phrase ever since. What exactly is medicine for the mind? I don't think it's something we add. Maybe it's something we stop doing. Maybe medicine for the mind begins when we stop asking the present moment to provide guarantees about the future. Because the mind has an extraordinary habit. It can leave the moment that we're actually living in, and the mind can start living inside a moment that doesn't actually exist. Tomorrow, next week, next year. What if this happens? What if that happens? What if I lose this? What if something changes? And the incredible thing is that the body can begin reacting to those imagined events as though they were actually happening now. We can be sitting safely on our porch and psychologically living through a catastrophe that exists nowhere except in our thoughts. Now, this doesn't mean that we should become passive. It doesn't mean that we learn to ignore our problems. It doesn't mean that we stop planning. Because when something requires a response, respond. Make a phone call. Go to the doctor. Repair the roof. Pay the bill. Apologize. Change direction. Do whatever this moment genuinely asks you to do. But I have begun noticing a very important distinction. Response deals with what is happening. Anxiety, on the other hand, attempts to deal with what might happen. One is participation in reality, and the other is an attempt to negotiate with our imagination. Lately, I have been wondering how much human suffering comes from trying to solve moments that haven't even arrived yet. We want certainty. We want guarantees. We want our bodies to keep working. We want our homes to remain secure. We want the people we love to stay beside us. We want tomorrow to resemble today. No surprises. Yet when life refuses to sign that contract, we might become frightened. We might become bitter, or maybe even a little angry. But perhaps we've misunderstood where peace actually comes from. What if peace isn't created by making life predictable? What if peace comes from no longer demanding that life be predictable? Now that brings me back to Sedona. At the time, that parking problem was frustrating. I thought something was going wrong. I was trying to make the situation cooperate with the life I thought I was supposed to be living. I had a plan. I expected the plan to work. But Sedona didn't work out. And because Sedona didn't work out, Diane came to Oxley. Something I interpreted as rejection became redirection. So isn't that fascinating? Because while we're living through something, we almost never know what it means. We only know what it feels like. Sometimes what looks like an ending becomes an opening. Sometimes a door closes and somebody opens a window. Sometimes what looks like an interruption actually becomes a new direction. And sometimes the thing we're trying desperately to hold together needs to fall apart before something else can appear. And sometimes we simply don't know. We don't know anything. And that's okay. Perhaps those are 3 of the most spiritually useful words a human being can learn. I don't know. The mind doesn't particularly like those words. The mind would prefer, here is exactly what's happening. Here's why it's happening, and here's what will happen next. But life rarely gives us that kind of script. When I first met Diane, I didn't know there would be a second meeting. When I returned to Sedona, I didn't know I would leave. When Sedona seemed to reject me, I didn't know it was pointing back towards Oxley. When I started building a new bedroom, I didn't know exactly what our life together would become. We never know very much about the next chapter while we're standing inside the present one. And perhaps we're not supposed to. Maybe freedom begins when we stop asking this moment to guarantee the next one. Impermanence typically sounds frightening when we first hear the word. It sounds like loss. It sounds like everything we love is being taken away. But you know what? I've begun seeing this differently. Impermanence doesn't mean nothing matters. Almost the opposite. Everything matters because it's here, now. The flowers matter because they will not bloom forever. The morning matters because evening will come. The dog sleeping at our feet matters. The cup of coffee matters. The conversation matters. The little act of kindness matters. The person sitting beside us matters. This ridiculous little ordinary Tuesday afternoon matters. Not because we can keep it, but because we can't. Impermanence doesn't diminish life. It makes life precious. And perhaps medicine for the mind is learning to let each moment arrive and let each moment leave without demanding that it must stay. Acceptance isn't resignation. And acceptance doesn't mean we don't care. It doesn't mean we surrender our intelligence or our ability to act. Acceptance simply means we stop arguing with the fact that what has happened has happened. And then we can ask a different question. What does this moment require of me now? Not yesterday's moment, not tomorrow's imagined moment, but this one. And when the next moment arrives, I'll meet that one too. Maybe that's what I've been trying to understand all these years through meditation, through studying A Course in Miracles, through non-reactive intelligence, through relationships, through loss, and through this strange little human journey. We don't overcome impermanence, but we do learn to dance with it. We participate, we appreciate, and we remain curious. We love what is here while it is here. And when something changes, we learn to listen. And maybe that is the real medicine for the mind. It's not certainty, but presence. Not control, but relationship. Not permanence, but appreciation. And somewhere beneath all of this is something I've begun thinking of as the fire of awareness. It's not like some mystical fire burning on a mountaintop. It's not something available only through meditation or retreats or spiritual practices. I mean the quiet fire that illuminates ordinary experience, like building a bedroom, making coffee, meeting someone for the first time, or losing a parking space, planting flowers, driving through the rain, caring for someone that you love, and trying to fix something that broke. Sitting on the porch, listening to the birds, wondering where they are. Standing beneath the stars with a dog who doesn't understand why everything suddenly changed. None of these things look particularly spiritual. And maybe that's because we've been looking for spirituality in the wrong place. And perhaps awakening isn't somewhere beyond our ordinary life. Perhaps ordinary life is the fire. And this is what this new series is going to explore. Life here in this little corner of the Ozarks. The things Diane and I are learning. The things we're building. The things we are letting go. The things we are discovering. And it's those unexpected moments when something completely ordinary opens and reveals something extraordinary. That's Oxley Fire 496. The fire of awareness. It's burning in the middle of an ordinary life. And I should probably tell you where that strange name came from. One day, Diane walked into the kitchen while I was making coffee, and she announced, very proudly I must add, that she had come up with a new password. She looked at me and said, "You're going to like this one." I said, "Well, what is it?" She said, "Oxley Fire 496. As you can imagine, I looked at her kind of with a blank stare. Okay, Oxley Fire, I understand. I make fires, but where did 496 come from? So she made a little gesture as though she'd simply pulled the number out of the air. And then she said, "Well, you've probably made at least 496 fires out here." And that was it. Except apparently it wasn't. Because sometimes later I discovered that 496 is what mathematicians call the third perfect number. And I thought, well, of course it is. A completely ordinary conversation in the kitchen, a ridiculous password, a man who likes making fires, a woman pulling a number out of nowhere, and somehow here we are. Maybe that's another kind of medicine for the mind. Not needing everything to make sense before we are willing to notice it, but remaining curious, remaining available, and allowing life to surprise us. So, welcome to Oxley Fire 496. Come sit with us by the fire, and let's see where it takes us. May peace be with you.
I didn't know how lost I'd been till you smiled and the world let me in. Your touch is soft like a fiddle's refrain, like porch swing shadows after the rain. You don't speak in grand displays, but you stay, and that says everything. Like a sunrise, slow and kind, you don't rush, you just arrive. Warming places deep inside where I forgot to feel alive. No fireworks, no warning signs, just you like a sunrise. I've known storms and I've known drought. Built my walls, then wore them out. But you saw past what I'd defend and loved me quiet till I bent. Like a sunrise, slow and kind, you don't rush, you just arrive. Warming places deep inside where I forgot to feel alive. No fireworks, no warning signs, just you like a sunrise. And maybe I was always waiting for something gentle, not earth-shaking, not a spark, but something steady that holds me soft and always ready. Like a sunrise, slow and kind, you don't rush, you just arrive. Bringing peace I can't describe, but I see